Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, the Vice Chairman of the Storey County Commission, Clay Mitchell, joins us here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome to Storey County, where history meets innovation, and a pioneering spirit continues to shape our future. At the heart of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, we power the future with global leaders in technology and manufacturing, driving progress that reaches far beyond our county lines. From advanced manufacturing to tech innovation, our industries are creating thousands of quality careers, fueling a vibrant economy that benefits every Nevadan. But it's more than just growth. Our community is our foundation, supporting families, empowering local initiatives, and creating a place where everyone belongs. Be part of a legacy built on bold ideas and boundless possibilities. Join us in building a brighter future right here in Storey County. Storey County, helping build Nevada's future.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
It's a good time to eat. It's a good time to play.
It's a good time to win.
Ooh, your good times a Tamarack.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Clay Mitchell. He is Vice Chair of the Storey County Commission. Pleasure to have you back on the program, sir.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
And as I always like to say at the beginning of these shows, I've been involved with Storey County since the early 1990s in one form or another, so people are aware of that. A very successful legislative session. The bill that Storey County was promoting, and you can share what that is, it came through and was signed by the governor, and that will benefit the entire state of Nevada.
Absolutely. And I know Mr. Adler was on touting the bill. SB 69 was the number that was assigned to our bill. As you know, each county gets one bill to run each session, and we decided to run a bill to encourage and even require greater participation from local governments in the abatement process, which has been held pretty closely at the state level up until now. And so the bill requires that early in the process, local jurisdictions are notified of a large project. This only applies to the $1 billion or $3.5 billion investment abatement programs. And at that point, the county or city or fire district, which previously was not even required to be notified, would then either opt into a process of negotiating with the company to offset some of the impacts, or they can opt out of that and say, we have other ways to deal with the impacts. We're good, thank you for letting us know. And that's the fundamental premise of the bill. We feel like it's good legislation. It got better through the legislative process, working with GOED and other interest groups, and we dialed it in. We didn't get everything that we wanted, but that's the process, and we feel like it really empowers the local jurisdictions to prepare for these big projects so that they can be welcomed and be successful.
And as you're looking down the road here, and I don't want you to give away any secrets, well, you can, of course, but I mean, but we're seeing more and more of these large type projects, and some are laying the ground. They are not necessarily the ones that are going to look for abatements, but down the road, companies that they bring onto their land are going to be looking for these kind of abatements, and counties like Storey especially
are going to need this.
That's something we found out through this process. When we introduced the bill, it was actually less about us. We have our hands full with everything that's happening there. And as you noted, in 2014, $3.5 billion was a lot of money. There's been quite a bit of inflation since then, and it is more and more common because that's a more common number for people to achieve on a development project. But we were really thinking about some of our neighbors who were likely to receive this type of development and thinking, it's been kind of a rocky road for us in some cases, and we had concluded that that was systemic, that there was a need to adjust the process, that it was not malicious, it was not that anyone involved in economic development was trying to make it difficult for us, but it was a symptom of the way that things had been set up when that legislation was put into place. And so you're absolutely right. We found out from some landholders in the county that they anticipated that they would be subdividing or developing and then bringing in either reselling or tenants that would qualify for these large abatements, and that it was important for them to get good clarity and good process around how those go and not to interrupt the flow of economic development.
Have you been surprised at the growth of data centers over the last couple of years here? Because, this is, if you read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, this is a boom and growth industry.
Absolutely, and I don't think that's going to change. I haven't been surprised because those who have located here and their site selection contractors have told us what is attractive about this area. And this has been discussed on your show by various people, but one of the biggest ones is data centers that are being built today to support AI operations. They're not grandma's pictures in the cloud. These are building-sized computers. And
would you repeat that statement? Building-sized computers.
Yeah, so they're changing from, a lot of them are changing from massive facilities down to much smaller, maybe 50,000 square feet, but in a cluster. But they're wired together and they are processing together. A lot of the headquarters for these companies are in Silicon Valley. And so this region is about as close as you can get to Silicon Valley without being in California. The lower costs, the attendant more favorable tax treatment, so on and so forth. And so as a result, we're very attractive because the time it takes the data to go back and forth, which happens constantly because they are computing, not just storage, that makes a difference. 3 milliseconds is a big deal and can't be replicated somewhere else in the country. And so that's a big part of it. The abatements are attractive. We're one of the few states, we've been told, that that allow a data center company to share the abatement benefit with a company that rents space from them, that co-locates with them. And so that's an attractive feature. And then speed and certainty are the things that, our friend, the CEO of Tract, mentioned it in that way. He said there's a good alignment here between their corporate culture and Storey County in that speed and certainty are what they provide to their customers, and that's what they found when they came and located here.
Who would have thought that the AT&T line that goes from coast to coast and that comes right past Nevada would be such an incredible benefit to Nevada and in particular to Storey County?
Absolutely, and we're seeing that with all of the major infrastructure, the gas pipeline that comes through, the highway, the rail, all of those major facilities end up being often the deciding factor in where companies locate.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and then we'll talk about some interesting things that came up from Bill Thomas's interview here from the RTC on this program. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
You're in trouble with the law. It's easy to think you'll lose everything, but there is hope. I'm attorney Orrin Johnson. Your first step is to hire a serious attorney with the experience to successfully navigate the legal system for you.
Sometimes hope means addiction treatment instead of jail, and making sure you're treated fairly.
Sometimes hope means fearless trial attorneys who will stand up to the government when they get it wrong. Call or text Orrin Johnson Law.
We'll make a plan.
You'll take back your life.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Meet Nevada Health Link, Nevada's official health insurance marketplace. Your link to savings, selection, free assistance, and name brand health insurance, where 90% of enrollees lower the cost of their monthly premium. Everyone deserves access to quality health coverage, no matter your income or family size. Visit NevadaHealthLink.com. A few minutes could save you hundreds of dollars per month.
Nevada Health Link. Our plans are made for your plans.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Clay Mitchell. He is the vice chair of the Storey County Commission. When Bill Thomas was on the program, I asked him about various transportation issues that are occurring or will occur, and some of the resolutions of those. I-80 is a nightmare Monday through Friday for sure during peak traffic hours. The widening process appears to be underway as far as financing goes, which has to be some kind of, I'm not a religious person, but some kind of miracle right there. But you got into an exchange on social media about light rail, because that's one of the things that RTC is looking at. You don't think that that's such a good idea?
Well, I'm a fan of rail, and there's a bit of romance to traveling by rail, even modern rail. In a former life, I was a troublemaker. Maybe, some people say maybe that hasn't changed, but I worked fairly closely on some commuter rail issues, and so I know just enough to be dangerous. But there are distinct challenges when you share rail lines with freight, and you cannot run light rail on a shared track. There are safety concerns, and that requires additional expense. So, for example, there were a couple of commuter train accidents that led to requirements for what's called positive train control. Basically, someone who's not driving the train to be able to take control if they need to, if the operator falls asleep or has a medical incident. That adds hundreds of millions of dollars to the project. The other issue is your first mile and your final mile. How do you get people to a fixed route transit system, and then from the other end of that out to their final destination? I think it's manageable on the end of the business park, because there are a certain number, it's a fairly compact area, relatively speaking, but I don't really know how we do it on the other end. That canyon is narrow, and if we're widening the freeway, we've got concerns about maintaining the quality of the water in the river. Union Pacific controlling the tracks there. I have a hard time seeing how we could put a commuter rail line in there in a way that works. That being said, the county is participating financially in the study. While I'm not hopeful, I feel like we need to look at all of the options, and so we have made the decision to contribute to that so that it can be thoroughly vetted out and see if it's a possibility.
Okay, so at this point in time, widening of I-80 underway. What about Mayor Lawson's idea of building the road into Sparks? Because there's just, for those in Southern Nevada watching and listening to this program, there is just an incredible amount of traffic. I mean, it needs to be resolved. Otherwise, things are going to come to a total standstill, and they do when accidents occur. His idea during the legislative session was a toll road. That got blown up. What were your thoughts about that and how we proceed?
It's fascinating because living on the Comstock, all of our major roads were originally toll roads. And in fact, there was a conversation as recently as 2006 in making a county road a toll road because people were cutting through the county as a shortcut to get to Reno. And it didn't end up being implemented in the end, but it was discussed seriously, and actually voted to be approved and then kind of stalled out in the implementation. So I'm certainly open. We're supportive of an alternative route to the north. It makes sense. Somewhere north of 70% of the workers that are commuting out to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center live north of I-80. And so having a relief valve, and this is what I notice, under normal conditions, things flow fairly well through there, but there are frequent accidents and other things that back it up, and there's no workaround that really works well. And so we're supportive and continue to be supportive of a northern connector. We hear that there may be some federal support for that. I don't know if that translates into dollars, but certainly a desire to accelerate the need for an alternate route there. We were looking at a southern route cutting through Storey County as well, and took a look at that and determined that it would not be feasible. The number of bridges, the expense was astronomical. And so certainly we're still open to that. That's private land through there. We're the anomaly here in Nevada, which everyone knows is mostly heavily public land. Most of Storey County is private land. And so that's something that would facilitate a southern connector route. The topography does not.
And the dollars are just crazy.
Yeah, and directly tied to the topography. You know, that's when you have to build to highway standards with really mountainous terrain, it adds, the cost just goes way up.
As you look further out and you look at Silver Springs, the other end of USA Parkway, which is the road that came out of the park and goes all the way out there to Silver Springs and US 50, there is still a tremendous amount of potential growth to go there. There's 20,000 acres that was the Adams property, and pieces of that have already been purchased, but that will eventually be a city-sized project, will it not?
Absolutely, and we've actually at the county level, part of the conversation that you referenced had to do with housing and where do we put the people that are working at these jobs. Back in December, we modified our master plan to re-envision a section of the south end of Storey County from light industrial into potentially residential. Now, at the county, we're not in the housing business. It's really the owners of the property and developers. It's up to them to do something with it. But that was about 2,500 acres. We looked at it and said, this is a relatively boring drive going out Highway 50 and up USA Parkway. Better to put growth on that end of things than to add it on the north end, though we are open to residential growth in Painted Rock or maybe in Lockwood in a smaller scale. We're open to that, but really as a future growth pattern, it makes sense to do that down on the south end of things where there is, as you mentioned, quite a bit of development potential. That 2,500 acres conceivably could, even at a modest density, it could be 10,000 houses.
Yes, it's huge.
That creates its own challenges. And as you know, Sam, one of the biggest impediments is water and getting water to these areas. And so we're in regional conversations looking at where there's water, how we could bring it to areas that could support housing, how do we provide other services, how do we connect and properly plan for transportation, sewer, all the other things that need to happen with major growth.
Okay, so where is the cost of water at this point in time? Is it extremely high?
I'm not a great person to ask. Okay. What I do know is I know that a lot of the water rights have been acquired for various purposes and transferred and allocated to different places. So early on, there were water rights that were in Storey County that were allocated to Sparks to allow them to continue to grow. When we facilitated building the effluent pipeline to take treated effluent from the Truckee Meadows, part of that deal was 1,500 acre feet of freshwater rights were given to Tumwa to maintain flows in the river so that as the treated effluent was taken out, clean water could be put in to maintain the flows that were needed downstream to our downstream neighbors, including the tribe at Pyramid Lake. And so that's a chunk of water that's been set aside that can't be used for other things, rightly so. But as you know as well, Sam, there's water on paper and there's water in reality,
Yes,
and
sir.
they don't always resemble each other.
And that's an ongoing discussion across the state, and will be forever.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this: in terms of transportation, are you guys doing studies on, potentially starting your own version of RTC or joining with RTC? Because one of the ways that you can get traffic off the road, if people will go for it, and if the traffic is bad enough, they will, or buses, other forms of transportation to take larger groups of people but with less vehicles.
We have a really good relationship with RTC. We have open conversations with them. It's tough for us to think about being involved in an organization like that because of our small population. Our representation on their governing board would be nominal. And as a result, we don't feel like we would have an effective voice for our concerns and needs through that kind of a structure. And so we haven't really looked at, I don't know if we feel like we need another layer at the county level. And I think we prefer to have bilateral agreements and have direct conversations with our neighbors and look at ways that we can support them.
Okay, let's take another break and we'll talk about Fernley when we come back.
Sounds good.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
A power line is more than a power line. It's maintaining the bottom line for small businesses. It's keeping the assembly line moving for our workforce. For our brightest minds, it's meeting a deadline. It's on the front line with our heroes. And on the sidelines of the biggest games. It's a direct line to our loved ones. And it's a lifeline for the most vulnerable. There's a lot on the line.
The trucking industry is the most resilient link in the supply chain. And for over 90 years, the Nevada Trucking Association has been the voice for the men and women in the trucking industry. From Carson City to Washington, D.C., we advocate for policies to protect our trucking companies and keep commerce flowing. Because Nevada's and America's prosperity is tied to trucks. There's nothing without trucking.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Carson Valley Inn, it's your place for the good times. Carson Valley Inn.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Clay Mitchell. He is the Vice Chair of the Storey County Commission. In addition to Storey County booming, we've been talking about Fernley for a long time, but it is now booming too. How does that play into relations, obviously, between Fernley and Storey County, but addressing the growth that is going to come from that as well?
Absolutely. So we're very supportive of Fernley and their efforts to bolster and diversify their economic base. We have great relationship with them, I feel, and we're supportive. Really, we feel like we've been down that road to some extent, and so maybe we have some lessons that we've learned. Certainly, they are masters of their own destiny. But the region is growing, and it's growing out. The latest study that I saw showed that of the traffic going out I-80 through that corridor, somewhere in the range of 25% of that is getting off at USA Parkway. That means that 75% is not. And so that's regional, but that's also interstate traffic. There's a lot going on, and they certainly have different challenges than we do, but we're supportive of their efforts in any way that we can help.
And then if you go a little bit further out, you've got Hazen and an industrial park there with land that is far easier to develop and active work going on there. How does that play into all of this?
Well, and not just there. Pershing and Humboldt counties seem far, but really as the region expands, they're close, as well as Churchill. And so we're involved in regional groups that try to look at what infrastructure may be needed, things like the Western Nevada Development District and the local regional development authorities, to see how we can work together and make sure that that growth happens in an effective way.
So are you going to have more conversations with these large companies, because you have so many large companies already in Storey County that are very happy with the way that things have worked out between government and they, that as they progress, because it looks like they all want to expand in this region, in a lot of ways because the data centers need 2 or 3 locations to make things work, for them to be able to provide services ahead of time along with what the counties are providing.
Yeah, many of these corporations are actively involved in these conversations and figuring out how to provide for their workers. And we're grateful for that. It's a bit of a chicken and egg. Do you build the infrastructure first? How do you justify that expense, not knowing for sure if the project is going to...
That's the toughest part is, people always say, well, why don't you build the road before, the traffic jam? But then who's going to pay for it?
You're absolutely right. And Sam, one quick point that I want to make is this. There is a thought that everyone has to do everything, and I really see our role as symbiotic with our neighbors. There are things that we can do and do well that they cannot. We take some of the most intensive services and uses that you don't want near population centers, and we take those into our county. And in reverse, we cannot provide all of the other services that are needed. And so we work together, and as a region, we are progressing and developing. And the whole region should benefit from that. At some point, I'd love to, in the future, get into with you. We put together a little report that talks about some of the benefits and impacts of the growth that's happened, and really dials in and dispels some of the myths. There are narratives that pop up sometimes that don't really reflect what's actually happening on the ground. It's on our county website. Actually, people can browse the 80-page version, the 6-page summary, or the graphic novel version that we made for those who are on a tight time frame, like our legislators.
Your next visit, how about that?
Sounds good.
Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
And we'll be right back.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
It happens. And when it does, there's UMC Quick Care.
You can always watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. Thanks for watching and listening.